he wore the same shirt as the shooter did, and he was walking down. He had some type of like body cam device.
Just were in complete shock that this was happening over here, because this is supposed to be peaceful and it's not supposed to be any kind of craziness happening at this time.
He had a phone. I think he was recording himself because he was talking to himself, so I'm assuming he was recording himself. And he was saying a lot of hateful things towards Charlie, and that I don't want to reiterate. But so me and the officer were staring at him, and I was like, this guy's going to do something.
It's just heartbreaking. We want to show our support. Even those who engage in violence, we love them and we forgive them, and we want to win them for Christ.
Breaking. Just 5 minutes ago, an armed man was arrested at the very funeral of Charlie Kirk. What was supposed to be a solemn and quiet ceremony, a moment of respect for the life of a man whose influence was felt across the nation, suddenly spiraled into an atmosphere of fear, confusion, and unanswered questions. The church bells had barely finished ringing when witnesses say security personnel rushed toward a figure lingering in the crowd. At first, many thought it was a routine security sweep, but within seconds, panic rippled through the attendees as armed guards surrounded the man, shouting commands and ordering people to back away. According to those present, the suspect appeared calm at first, blending in with mourners dressed in black, but his movements reportedly caught the attention of private security, who had been scanning every face in the room since the service began. Eyewitnesses described the moment he was restrained as tense but quick, with law enforcement moving in before he could make any sudden action. When the man was taken into custody, attendees claim they saw a weapon recovered from him, a detail that has only deepened a sense of unease. The timing of this arrest is what has everyone talking. Funerals are sacred spaces, moments when even enemies are expected to stand aside and let grief take its course. But today, that boundary was shattered. The idea that someone would bring a weapon into such a gathering has left mourners shaken, and many wondering if this was more than coincidence. Why was he there? Was it an attempt to send a message, or something far more sinister? For now, all we know is that the funeral of Charlie Kirk, a moment meant to bring closure, has instead opened a new chapter of suspicion, fear, and national attention. For now, the man is behind bars, held in custody as investigators piece together every detail of his infiltration. The immediate danger was neutralized, and the crowd of mourners at the memorial, thousands who had come to grieve, remember, and honor Charlie Kirk, was ultimately kept safe. No blood was spilled inside the stadium that day, and officials have been quick to emphasize that security did its job by preventing a tragedy before it could unfold. Yet the incident has proven something far more unsettling than most are ready to admit. Even at a funeral, even under the heaviest, most sophisticated security presence imaginable, danger can still slip through the cracks. The realization has cast a shadow over the grieving process itself. Funerals are supposed to be sacred, moments of pause in the chaos of life. But for those who attended, the memory of Kirk's memorial will forever be linked to the chilling image of armed guards dragging away an imposter dressed to deceive. The whisper of what if now lingers. What if security hadn't caught him in time? What if his intentions had been carried out? What if the day that was meant to close a chapter had instead turned into another tragedy on live television? And until investigators can reveal the truth, until they can determine who this imposter came for, what his plan truly was, and whether he acted alone or as part of something larger, the fear and the questions will remain. Each unanswered detail feeds speculation. Each silence from authorities fuels doubt. Was this a misguided loner, or the sign of a coordinated effort? Was it an attempt at protection, or preparation for violence? For now, the nation waits, caught between relief that disaster was averted and dread that the story is not yet over. Because if danger can reach that close, on that day in that place, then nowhere feels truly safe. The memorial at State Farm Stadium in Phoenix was already under Super Bowl-level security, the kind of operation you'd expect for a presidential inauguration, not a funeral. Every detail had been meticulously planned. Metal detectors at every gate, bomb-sniffing dogs patrolling the grounds, snipers stationed on nearby rooftops, and surveillance drones circling high above the desert sky. Federal agents were working shoulder to shoulder with local Phoenix police, and the Secret Service had even been brought in to coordinate the layers of defense. Homeland Security had stamped the gathering with a Level 1 special event rating. the highest classification, reserved for situations where the risk of violence, terrorism, or major disruption is deemed extreme. With tens of thousands in attendance, political leaders, high-profile guests, family supporters, and media outlets from around the globe, officials knew the stakes were unlike any funeral the city had ever hosted. Attendees were searched, vehicles were scanned, and every credential was checked, rechecked, and logged. The atmosphere was tense but controlled. To most, it seemed as if no threat could possibly slip through such a fortified perimeter. And yet, despite the wall of security, an armed imposter still managed to infiltrate the memorial. Sources close to the investigation say the man had false identification and had attempted to pose as a contracted staffer, though officials have not confirmed exactly how he bypassed several checkpoints. What is clear is that he was inside, past offenses, mingling among the mourners. The revelation has left many questioning not only his intent, but also how a breach of this magnitude was even possible under such conditions. If a Level 1 special event, one of the most tightly guarded environments in the country, could be penetrated, what does that say about the vulnerabilities at future high-profile gatherings? Was this a lone act or a test run for something bigger? The fact remains, even with the eyes of the nation's security apparatus focused on one place, danger still found a way inside. Authorities later confirmed the man's identity: 42-year-old Joshua Runkles, a name most had never heard before, but one that is now being repeated across headlines and whispered in conversations far beyond Phoenix. What disturbed people most was not the arrest itself, but the way Runkles carried himself. Witnesses describe him as eerily composed, not panicked, not aggressive, not even trying to flee. Instead, he moved quietly among the mourners, shaking hands, nodding respectfully, blending in as if he were supposed to be there. He dressed the part too: dark suit, polished shoes, the kind of attire that would never look out of place at a high-profile memorial. But his calm demeanor wasn't what triggered the alarm. It was the words he spoke when confronted by security. Runkles allegedly claimed he was with law enforcement, specifically assigned to protect a guest of importance at the funeral. On the surface, it sounded convincing. After all, dozens of different agencies were on the ground that day, each with their own personnel and assignments. For a brief moment, some wondered if perhaps there had been a miscommunication. But the more questions officers asked, the less his story held up. His credentials didn't match. His name wasn't on any roster, and his badge, investigators quickly determined, was counterfeit. That was when a full search was ordered. The crowd looked on as armed guards pulled him aside, methodically patting him down and opening the black case he carried. What they discovered inside shocked everyone present. Though authorities have not publicly released every detail, eyewitnesses claim the items found raised the stakes from an ordinary trespassing incident to something far more sinister. Rumors spread instantly: a concealed firearm, tactical gear, possibly even surveillance equipment. What is certain is that this was not an innocent mistake, not a mourner in the wrong place at the wrong time. This was a deliberate infiltration attempt, one that has left investigators scrambling to determine just how deep the threat may go. Hidden on his person were two weapons, a loaded firearm and a tactical knife. Both had been carefully concealed, both smuggled past the kind of security screening that was supposed to make such a breach impossible. In a space where even the smallest pocket knife was banned, the fact that he managed to bring in not one, but two deadly weapons sent shockwaves through the stadium. Attendees later said the realization set in slowly. They had been sitting, standing, grieving, right beside a man armed and dangerous, and no one had known until seconds before his arrest. The immediate charge was straightforward: bringing weapons into a prohibited area, a felony in itself given the level of security and the designation of the event. But as investigators dug deeper, another charge emerged, one even more unsettling. Runkles was accused of impersonating law enforcement, the very cover story he had used to gain trust and slip through the cracks. To many, this was the part that struck the hardest. The badge, the confidence, the way he moved. It wasn't just luck. It was calculated deception, designed to exploit the natural trust people place in authority figures. This revelation sparked urgent questions. Was Runkles acting alone, or was he part of something coordinated? How had he acquired what appeared to be forged credentials convincing enough to survive multiple checkpoints? And perhaps most haunting of all, what was his true intention? Carrying 2 weapons into a memorial surrounded by some of the most heavily armed security in the country suggests either a deeply reckless individual or someone operating under a mission that went far beyond a single man's choice. As the charges were read, a chilling truth settled over everyone who had been there. This wasn't just about weapons. It was about access, intent, and the possibility that the breach at Charlie Kirk's funeral may have been only the beginning of a much larger story. Now, the biggest question looming over investigators and mourners alike isn't just how Joshua Runkles managed to get that far into memorial. It's why he was there at all. The breach itself has already rattled confidence in the security operation, but the deeper mystery lies in his intent. What purpose would drive a 42-year-old man to smuggle in a firearm and a knife into a funeral already under one of the strictest security cordons in the country? Runkles insisted to officers that he was there to protect someone. But protect who? And from what? His claim opens a maze of troubling possibilities. Could he have truly believed he was acting in some kind of unofficial capacity, guarding a guest of importance without authorization? Was this the act of a delusional man convinced of a mission that no one had given him? Or was the protection story merely a cover, a convenient excuse to mask a far more dangerous objective? That leads to the darker, more unsettling theories. Was he targeting someone inside? The memorial drew an unprecedented mix of powerful figures. Politicians, influencers, business leaders, and members of Kirk's family, all gathered under one roof. If Runkles had singled out one of them, who was it? A high-profile political figure? A grieving family member? Or, perhaps most chilling, was the target not an individual at all, but the crowd itself, thousands of mourners in a confined space, a soft target despite the heavy security on the outside? Every angle is now under review. His digital footprint, his phone records, his past connections, all are being combed through for signs of motive, because in a case like this, intent matters more than anything else. Until investigators can answer the why, the nation is left with a terrifying thought. If an armed man could stand in the middle of that funeral undetected, then what exactly was he waiting for? Charlie Kirk's assassination has already left America shaken to its core. The sudden, violent loss of such a polarizing figure has divided the nation between grief, anger, and raw disbelief. The accused gunman, Tyler Robinson, now sits behind bars, awaiting trial under the watchful eye of both prosecutors and the public. For many, his arrest seemed to mark a turning point. The beginning of justice, the closing of at least one chapter in a story that had already taken so much from so many. Families, supporters, and critics alike were still trying to process what had happened, still trying to reconcile the idea that a public figure could be struck down so openly in today's America. But the arrest of Joshua Runkles at Kirk's funeral has cracked open a darker possibility, one that chills even seasoned investigators. If security forces were already hunting for threats and still failed to prevent an armed infiltrator from entering, then the obvious question is unavoidable. Was Robinson really the only one involved? Or is this case larger, more organized, and far more dangerous than anyone first imagined? The fact that Runkles appeared during the memorial, a day meant to honor the dead, to give families closure, raises the stakes exponentially. Was he part of a wider network, another moving piece in a plan that extends beyond a single shooter? Was his goal to disrupt, to frighten, or to finish what Robinson had started? Or was it even worse? A second act, waiting to unfold in front of the entire nation as cameras rolled and dignitaries sat unprotected in what they thought was the safest place possible? For now, the country is left in suspense. If Robinson acted alone, then Runkles' presence is a haunting coincidence. But if he didn't, if there are still others circling this case, then the assassination of Charlie Kirk may not have been the end, but only the beginning of something much more dangerous. For now, the man is behind bars, held in custody as investigators piece together every detail of his infiltration. The immediate danger was neutralized, and the crowd of mourners at the memorial, thousands who had come to grieve, remember, and honor Charlie Kirk, was ultimately kept safe. No blood was spilled inside the stadium that day, and officials have been quick to emphasize that security did its job by preventing a tragedy before it could unfold. Yet the incident has proven something far more unsettling than most are ready to admit. Even at a funeral, Even under the heaviest, most sophisticated security presence imaginable, danger can still slip through the cracks. The realization has cast a shadow over the grieving process itself. Funerals are supposed to be sacred, moment of pause in the chaos of life. But for those who attended, the memory of Kirk's memorial will forever be linked to the chilling image of armed guards dragging away an imposter dressed to deceive.